pleasure to be here tonight, and it's my pleasure to introduce the man of all trades, John Baker.
So how was your week? Anything happen?
Oh, yeah. Crazy. We're all very, very happy and very surprised. And Mikey and the rest of the team say hello.
So 6 is a good number. And 4 for you, that's a pretty impressive number too. That hasn't been too often before. I think the count was Warrenby, Alan Lincoln, Chloe Zhao, and Alfonso Perone. Pretty impressive group.
Yeah. Great company.
A good company, and what does it mean to you?
Well, to tell you the truth, I think I'm still processing it. It's something we never expected, and that's I'm being honest about that, because we thought we were making a very divisive film, and it seems like it's getting a nice universal love, and so this was unexpected. I mean, it was really about Mikey. It was really all about her mom. That's all I thought about, and all I really cared about. So everything else was just wonderful gravy, I guess you could say.
Let's talk about Mikey. I mean, what was it about her? I mean, this is an incredible performance by her. And she's certainly quite the discovery. What made you think, talk about her story? I know that you wrote this for her.
Yeah. So I was blown away by her performance in Once Upon a Time, and it made such an impact that I went back a third time to see it just for her, for the last 15 minutes of the film, to watch her, because I cast my own films. So when I saw her, I was like, she's intriguing. I would like to work with her someday. So a few years later, when we were moving forward with Anora, and I knew I had to start looking for my Annie, it just happened to be that Samantha and I, my wife and producer, we went and we cast together. We went to see Scream opening weekend, and it was spirituous. It was literally, we were in the theater at the Sunset 5, and we said, she's our Annie. It's simple. It's a combination of those two performances, her physicality. In Scream, she's actually really funny. She has her performance is really layered, and it had that sense of humor that I was looking for. So we called her agent the second we stepped out of the theater, and it happened to be that she has the same agent as Brooklyn Prince from Florida Project, so that was wonderful, and we already had that connection. So we had coffee with her, and I was taken aback to the fact that she was nothing like those characters from those two films. She's quite reserved and soft-spoken, a little shy, and but also very excited and enthusiastic. And I pitched her this idea, and she goes, "Yeah, I'm down for it." And I go, "Okay, well now I have to actually write the screenplay." I already had the idea of getting it all in my head, so she said to us at that meeting, she was like, "Oh yeah, so that means I need a Brooklyn accent." I'm like, "Yes, you do." And I need to, dance in the pool. And I'm like, "Yep." Started taking lessons. So she really put in everything into this. I've never worked with an actor who prepared so much for a role. 4 months out, she was doing the pole dancing lessons. She had her father install a pole at her apartment. Without telling her dad what this was for. I think her dad thought, "Oh, this is her new career." But no, really dedicated. She worked with a dialect coach. She came to New York over a month early and lived in Brighton, and came to the club with us and shadowed dancers, and true dedication. And it was really wonderful. And also, in that initial coffee meeting that we had, she told me that Possession is one of her favorite films. And I'm like, how can I not ask you right here and now? So,
I mean, that's one of the amazing things about it, is that you meet her in person and you see this performance, the contrast is incredible. She's nothing like, I mean, it is called acting for a reason. How did you come up with the idea for Anora in the first place?
It's not really that interesting. It's a long history because it started back in '08 when I made that film called Prince of Broadway with Karin, who plays Toros in the film. Karin Karagoulian is a good friend of mine and an amazing actor. He's been in all of my films. So we were talking about, because of his connection to the Russian-American world of Brighton Beach, he lived there for a little while. He's married to a Russian-American, Lana, who plays his wife in the film, in the church scene. We thought we would tackle that next after Prince of Broadway, and so we wrote a script that was a gangster movie and a buddy movie, had nothing to do with sex work, and it just didn't go anywhere. But it was something that we wanted to return to for a very long time, and I think it was because of the research that I had done with my other sex worker films, Starlet, Tangerine, Red Rocket, is there one? Oh, Little Flogger Project. I think it made sense after Red Rocket. We were like, okay, we're going to take the story about a young dancer, stripper, and apply it to the Brighton Beach community. And I think, so it just took the time, it just needed to, that's that.
What is it about the world of sex workers or underrepresented or marginalized communities that appeals to you? Why is it something you keep coming back to?
Well, I think with sex workers in particular, I made this film called Starlet, and it was a look at the adult film industry here in the San Fernando Valley. And but just before that, what made me want to make that film, was that I was on the set of a television show that I was part of, Greg the Bunny, and we had some cameos from adult film stars. And there was a day that we were just hanging out on set, you know how it is on sets, it's a lot of waiting around and hanging out and talking. And I overheard one of the young performers, adult film performers, say something that really struck me. And it was the most mundane thing ever, but that's what struck me about it. She said something along the lines of like, oh, damn it, I forgot to take my laundry out of the washing machine and put it in the dryer this morning, and now it's gonna be all stale and stuff. And I said, that's such an every person goes through that. It's such a human thing, it's such an everyday thing. And that's what made me want to make Starlet, to show this stuff that a sex worker, the human side, you know, the stuff that isn't applied to the job, to the livelihood, stuff that's, you know, part of her or his every day. And so I think that was what got me into it. And then with each film, you know, there's research involved, there's time in which, and I became friends with sex workers, got to know sex workers, heard many stories. And so I think it was just an organic thing, you know? It was like, oh, this is another story I want to tell that based on maybe a bunch of different stories that I've heard. So yeah, that's the sex worker thing. Yep. Yeah. Sorry. Yeah.
Not at all. And then how did you settle on the tone for the movie? Because I think that's one of the most surprising things about it. You think you're in for one ride, and then it sort of takes a different turn. But then we're all along for this incredible wild ride that's really incredible and touching and wonderful and funny and ultimately very human.
Thank you. Yeah, I started to sort of play with tonal shifts with Red Rocket, and I wanted to continue that. And I knew that with more money this time, I was going to be able to perhaps even play with genre shifts. So that was very much part of the writing. Like, we knew we were going to, obviously, there's a major switch in the movie from what is almost like not a parody, but, you know, almost like my version of a Hollywood romantic comedy in the beginning, and then we slam the brakes on and we are into a real-time home invasion scene. So obviously everything had to change there in terms of style and tone, and so it was really just a kind of an exercise to see if we could actually pull it off. And then also just like the combination of emotion was something that is a challenge to me, to strike a balance, you know, to have the audience laughing when they possibly shouldn't probably shouldn't be laughing, and then questioning why they laughed later on. That was something that we were very aware of, and it was something that was in the screenplay. It was obviously, my actors were very aware of this in their performance, and they kind of intuitively knew when they could be raw and when they had to have it grounded in reality. So when we all got into that courtroom scene, I didn't even tell them. It was almost like we all understood at this point, we can get this to the level of like almost sitcom level raw humor. It's okay. And my actors just leaned into it, and they, and then ultimately finding the balance in post-production. I'm my own editor, so I had enough material to play with where I could balance those tones and eventually make it what it is.
How do you work with your actors? Do you rehearse with them?
Well, yes, I do, and more so with this film than I have in the past. Because my entire, I've made other films in which I mix it up in terms of levels of experience. I have had first-timers who have never acted before in a scene with, Willem Dafoe, you know what I mean? So, like, it's this time around, my entire lead cast and most of my supporting are seasoned professional actors. So it was a different approach, and we had time on our hands when we were all in Brighton together to really, spend time talking about the scenes and rehearsing. And in the space, the house that we shot at, the mansion, the family was so nice to allow us to shoot there for 3 weeks. They actually moved out. So we had that space to ourselves in 24 hours. So we could stay late after shooting, we could show up early before shooting, and spend the time in that space. That was very important because writing it was just, you don't really know it. The home invasion scene is so based on blocking and so based on where the characters are going to be that having my actors in that space and rehearsing in the place we're actually going to shoot was valuable. Yeah, so I love it. I love rehearsing.
And do you let them ad-lib? Do you let them play?
I do if the scene isn't too heavily scripted. There wasn't a tremendous amount of wiggle room with the home invasion scene because the dialogue was very it was all it was written fully out, and it had to get to a certain place, and there was just a lot of back and forth that just I couldn't deviate from that, or it wouldn't, I would lose sense of the scene and hit, hiccups and that I didn't have time to hit. So for example, that was tightly scripted. If there was air and my actors felt there was like a window, yes, I gave them permission to get a one-liner in there if they came up with something or another expletive. But then there are other scenes that are almost fully improv. And so, for example, the opening. The opening is really all about Mikey, just showing her in that space of the club. On the page, if you look at the screenplay, it's just like she approaches another client and has an interaction. She approaches another client and has an interaction. And so none of the dialogue was written there. I mean, we had certain lines that Mikey and I knew she was going to throw out there, like, let's hit the ATM, that sort of thing. But for the most part, we just rolled 30 minutes on her, three mags of film, just with she had an earpiece, and obviously she was she had a wireless mic, and we just followed her with the music blasting, by the way. I pre-cleared music so that we could use any of this 30 minutes just in case. And so the music was married to the dialogue, and the place was essentially up and running. It was like a live club. So I would say, approach the guy on the right, and she would go and approach essentially a stranger. I mean, he was a background actor, and they knew what they were doing, but she would have to approach a stranger, have this interaction, and then when I would tell her I got enough, move on to the other guy, she knew enough from having studied that world that she would give me a totally different interaction with the next person. And she gave me a wealth of material. Like, I have 30 minutes of gold that I had to whittle down to about 3 minutes. But she got there by, again, spending time at the club, shadowing dancers, understanding what those interactions would be, and knowing that each one was going to be different, because in real life, it's different. You know, when a dancer approaches one of those guys at a lap dance club, they have to read them in seconds and figure out what am I going to do? How do I, this is a different, it's almost, you know, it's psychological, sociological, it's psychological, because they have to, what is it going to take? What performance do I have to put on right now to get that person in the private, or get a lap dance out of that guy, or get him to spend more money? And it's really incredible that she soaked in so much of that world that she was able to give me just all of that, up to where she meets Ivan. That's her improvising.
Really speaks to your relationship with her and the trust that you built together.
Yeah, I think that we just connected, you know? And again, she's like a budding cinephile, so I really appreciated her, the movies that she loved. She didn't even tell me she was a fan of Tangerine for like months. For months, I don't think she wanted to, but, you know, you seem like a fangirl, so she told me months down the line, by the way, I've seen Tangerine 5 times and I love it. I'm like, oh, okay, fine then. But we continue to, we're very good friends, and it's really wonderful to see this all happen for her.
Your other incredible discovery is Yura. Pretty amazing to watch, you know, what this has been for him and how his performance has emerged. Did you think that this was going to be something for him as well?
I didn't know, I didn't expect the nom, but it's incredible, and I'm so happy, and obviously he deserves it. He's an incredible actor. I saw him in Compartment Number 6, which is a wonderful Finnish film you should all check out, Juho Kuusmasen's wonderful film that was at Cannes this year. I was there with Red Rocket, and I just saw him on the screen, and I already knew there was, even though he was precast the way that Mikey was precast. And so was Karin, obviously, who plays Toro. So those 3 were in my head as I was writing it. And Yura brought so much, because Yura knew, when he read it, he's like, I don't have much dialogue here. But he knew that he still had to, you know, we know where the character is going, right? So he was giving me this incredible, almost background performance. And I was noticing a lot of it in post-production, which was really, really wonderful to see. Oh, he did make eye contact with her in that little moment and looked away, and you can see, an eager character is actually more in the dark than the audience is. When the beginning of the home invasion scene, when he arrives, he knows less than the audience does. So it's really crazy to watch Yura play this character who's so in the dark and is trying to figure things out, but without asking questions, without verbalizing anything. And you can see it on his face. He's truly, like, already a master actor. He's incredible.
And he really does that. He has a delicate balance to seeming like a heavy, but also making a heart in there, which we very much see in that final scene. You're talking a lot about the post-production and editing it yourself. Why is that so important to you?
Because nobody else could edit this. It's a mess. No, I don't mean it that way. I mean, my coverage is unconventional. I think if I was ever a director for hire working for the studios, I would be fired on the second day after they saw the dailies. It's something in which, for me, it's like the third part of making. It's just as important as writing, just as important as directing. It's all 3 of those things add up to what is, I guess, my vision. So I need it in order to, so sometimes I'm literally, as I said earlier, I'm like finding the tone, finding the balance of tones, but also sometimes there's rewriting in post-production. And I, because I wrote it and directed, I have that liberty. I don't have to like call up the writer and say, oh, I have permission to cut this line or change this line or go through the WGA. I can just do it on my own. And yeah, I think it's the only way for me to make these films. But I also, you know, I said earlier that the Mikey nomination was the only one that I care about, but I do actually am really happy about the editing nomination. So I have to say, editing doesn't get for me, that's sometimes I see it as like a major part of directing editing. So.
And it lets you put the fine point on the story that you're trying to tell, for sure. Do you have a moment that you're proudest of in the film?
I have to say, the ending, and it's nothing to do with me, it's my incredible cast and crew. I said, this is what I want. And if you read the script, you'll see it's very close to what we got in the end there. And I said, we can't have any compromises. The snow has to look amazing. We have to hit these emotional cues. The entire film is really relying on whether or not that last scene works or not. And it was quite stressful for all of us involved. So the fact that we pulled it off and I think it works, I'm proud of that last scene.
You should be. All right, I'm really sorry we've got to end it there. Thank you all so much for coming.